As I pushed open the heavy oak door to Ethan Blackwood's opulent office, I was immediately enveloped by the rich aroma of aged leather and expensive cologne, an olfactory testament to his wealth. Sunlight streamed through the grand window, casting slanted beams across the meticulously organized chaos on his mahogany desk. There he sat, a portrait of confidence, fingers intertwined behind his head, the corners of his mouth curling into a smirk that was both disarming and irritating. "My name is Clara Voss," I began, my voice steady, though the nervous flutter in my stomach wrestled with my resolve. "I'm 34 years old, and I'm your maid." The words left my lips with a mixture of familiarity and challenge, an introduction that I knew carried the weight of my existence within these walls. Ethan's laughter erupted like a clap of thunder, resonating with a hint of condescension. "A maid trying to introduce herself? How quaint," he snickered, his icy blue eyes surveying my uniform with unmistakable disdain. I could feel the heat creeping up my neck. This was a routine I had navigated many times before, but the sting of his mockery still cut deep. I had seen this expression on the faces of other high society figures, wealth breeding arrogance, making them blind to the humanity of those who served them. I worked silently, polishing the silver picture frames that held his life's greatest achievements, charity balls, lavish vacations, and the chaotic joy of a birth of his son, all neatly encapsulated in these ornate trinkets. With each swipe of the cloth, I cursed my circumstances softly under my breath. Here he was, a billionaire who monopolized wealth, while I was trapped under the burden of servitude. It occurred to me that beneath his curated exterior laid an insecurity that no amount of money could quell. As I dusted the shelves, I couldn't help but ponder the duality of our lives. His empire was built on ambition and ruthless maneuvering, while mine was shadowed by a past I had yet to confront. I could see the power he wielded, the way he gestured grandly, like a puppeteer commanding an audience, yet I was also painfully aware of the facade he maintained. And in that moment, I remembered the words my father, who had once commanded a mere fraction of Ethan's empire, had whispered to me, "Beneath this uniform beats the heart of a titan." It sparked a fierce pride within me. My father had taken me to his estate as a child, where I had marveled at the juxtaposition of wealth and the world outside. I may have been a maid today, but I was molded by trials that forged resilience deep within me. The dismissal I experienced today would not be the end of my story, but merely the beginning. I was no longer willing to be a ghost gliding through the expansive halls of this mansion. I yearned to awaken the titan inside me. As I continued my task, I focused intently on Ethan. I caught glimpses of resignation in the way his jaw clenched when he thought I wasn't watching. Did he truly believe that wealth endowed him with superiority? It was a notion I was determined to dismantle brick by brick. With every flick of my wrist, each stroke of the cloth, I envisioned myself tearing down his lavish kingdom, replacing it with something more profound: truth, justice, retribution. I took a deep breath, allowing determination to pulse through my veins. I sensed the power coiling within me, waiting patiently to be unleashed. Today, I was merely the maid. Tomorrow, I would be his reckoning. Each day spent under Ethan Blackwood's roof would draw us closer to the inevitable clash of worlds, the privileged and the hidden. I couldn't shake the feeling that in this uneven match, I held a trump card. My past, although shrouded in mystery, was a reservoir of strength, and I intended to tap into its riches. He had dismissed me today, but one day soon, I would make sure he would remember Clara Voss. As I meticulously polished the last silver frame in Ethan's office, my mind drifted back in time, to a realm where the boundaries between wealth and simplicity felt blurred. I could almost smell the fresh-cut grass from the expansive grounds of my father's estate, where verdant gardens enveloped the lavish mansion like a warm embrace. Those childhood visits had been mysterious and alluring, laughter spilling from the open windows, the clinking of crystal glasses, and a swirl of elegant gowns danced in my memory, a vivid contrast to the monotony of my current life. Back then, I had felt alive. My father, Richard Voss, was a man of quiet stature with a powerful secret. He often recited tales of fortunes made and lost, instilling in me an understanding of the intricate dance of wealth. I would watch him from behind the closed door of his study as he navigated deals with sharp-tongued tycoons, his mind whirring with calculations and contingencies. "Wealth can be a weapon or a shield, Clara," he would say, his voice grave yet exciting, "but always remember, those with the most power do not always command the best character." Yet, as age crept upon me, I began to associate that wealth with a sense of injustice. My father's deep-seated resentment towards his wealthy counterparts became clearer, a tension that transformed into bitterness when he lost everything in a disastrous investment he never spoke about. I was thrust into a world where the lessons he taught me became mere whispers, overshadowed by the reality of our fall from grace. Resentment wove through my heart as I sat across from my father, fresh tears reflecting my confusion. How could we go from being grand to grandly invisible? Years passed. After my father's abrupt disappearance from the industry, I had no choice but to forge my own path, one that saw me entering the service of the very people who represented everything he loathed. I entered the Blackwood mansion not out of choice but necessity. It was in these walls, filled with opulence and arrogance, where I would wage my silent war, my insidious journey cloaked beneath the guise of servitude. Ethan Blackwood rose to prominence fueled by a sharp mind and even sharper elbows. From rags to riches, he had mastered the art of networking, his arrogance blossoming in proportion to his income. I often caught snippets of conversations among the staff, guffaws and whisperings about how he snubbed those he considered beneath him. Watching him now, seated in his throne-like chair, with his penchant for derision, each laugh a reminder of my father's teachings, made my resolve harden. In Ethan's world, people were resources to be exploited, emotions were liabilities to be discarded, his dismissive behavior merely a mask for a painful past that he couldn't shed. I imagined the boy he had once been, a young man with dreams buried beneath expectations, vaulting over others to hold on to a seat at the table. He denied the hurt behind that laughter, consuming life with a fierce ambition that ultimately shaped him into a fearsome adversary, unaware that it would be the same ambition that laid him bare. As evening fell and shadows danced beneath the flickering light fixtures, I continued my duties with an ever-keen sense of observation. Thoughts of the past swirled as I transitioned from room to room, collecting whispered words and snippets of conversations. Each moment was an opportunity. I had to pay attention to the cracks in Ethan's ever-present mask. "Have you heard the rumors?" one maid gossiped, barely above a whisper. "They say he's had some troubling dealings lately." "Troubling? You mean the merger? It could make or break him." "Have you seen the new woman in the office?" "She's not as discreet as she should be," another replied, rolling her eyes. Their words struck a chord within me, each piece of gossip becoming a thread in the canvas I was weaving. I began to understand that this house was a labyrinth of secrets, and amidst these opulent halls lay crucial information. The cracks in Ethan's empire were evident, and each detail I gathered added layers to my plan. Then there was Julia, his wife. I watched her with curious eyes, evident behind my facade of professionalism. Though bound by her own struggles, her subtle glances of frustration at her husband intrigued me. I could see the longing in her gaze, a desire to escape the gilded cage of her existence. Perhaps she was the key to understanding Ethan better, a bridge between two opposing worlds, his and mine. As these reflections overshadowed my tasks, I knew my past experiences gave me the vision I needed. I was no longer just Clara the maid. I was a vessel of knowledge and purpose. The threads of my history were weaving a story that was about to unravel the very fabric of Ethan Blackwood's life. With each day that passed, the foundation beneath his empire felt more unstable. I could feel it. My past, tinged with bitterness and resilience, led me to this very moment, a chance to confront my father's legacy and reclaim my own strength. And as I swept the floors of the mansion, dusting cobwebs where even the air was thick with deception, I understood that I had the opportunity to rise from the shadows, ready to claim what was rightfully mine, not just for me, but for my father's memory. I vowed I would not let this moment slip through my fingers. When the pieces finally fell into place, Ethan Blackwood would discover that Clara Voss was a name to be reckoned with, an heiress cloaked in the guise of a maid, ready to reclaim her narrative and assert her rightful place in this unforgiving world. In the following weeks, I immersed myself deeper into the rhythm of the Blackwood household, my role evolving from mere maid to observant shadow. Each day, I glided through the luxurious halls, soaking in the subtleties of conversations and the dynamics swirling around Ethan Blackwood. I had transitioned from simply performing my duties to gathering clues, sifting through this maze of wealth and deception. Ethan seemed blissfully unaware of my newfound scrutiny, dismissing my presence with his typical arrogance. Yet, I could sense a shift in his demeanor recently. His confidence transformed into an edge of tension, a brittle facade threatening to crack. I began to orchestrate my interactions with him, exploiting small moments to ingrain myself within his world. I caught fleeting glimpses of vulnerable hesitation beneath his polished surface, an emptiness that stirred my determination. One afternoon, as I dusted the ornate shelves in his office, a stack of papers caught my eye, haphazardly strewn across his desk. I seized the opportunity as he spoke on an urgent phone call, inching closer to the secrets hidden within those documents. Financial summaries and transaction histories came alive before me, revealing inconsistencies that sparked my curiosity. A singular name recurred. My father's old company had somehow entangled itself in Ethan's dealings, casting shadows over his empire. My pulse quickened as I scribbled notes, a plan coiling within me. This was my opportunity to challenge Ethan's bravado and get him to underestimate me further. But I needed to nurture my position. Building trust would be essential in unearthing his secrets. Amidst this scheming, Julia, Ethan's wife, became a focal point of my strategy. She caught me more often, her eyes clouded with concern as she sought conversation with me amid the hum of domestic activity. One evening in the kitchen, she glanced up from her teacup, her voice barely above a whisper. "Clara, do you think it's easy to wear this mask?" Her vulnerability struck me. "Maybe you need to let someone in, show them who you really are," I suggested gently, feeling the weight of our shared struggles. She looked relieved, grateful for an understanding ear. "Ethan keeps secrets. It terrifies me. Sometimes I wish I could escape this gilded cage." My heart raced. It was the vulnerability I needed to exploit. "Secrets?" I pressed, intrigued by the glimpse of her fractured world. She hesitated, then whispered, "He's involved in something. Important deals that don't feel right. Some nights, he comes back different, a stranger in his own home." Her words ignited a fire within me. A connection began to form. Julia's discontent carried with it the key to understanding Ethan's true character. I honed in on this dynamic, for if I could align myself with Julia, she might become a vessel for insight into her husband's guarded heart. As days passed, building my rapport with Julia became easier. She began to trust me, offering glimpses into her life with Ethan. In her moments of honesty, I learned details that added color to Ethan's hidden torments, an ambitious titan wrestling with the consequences of reckless choices. By the end of a particularly hectic week, it became clear to me that the weight of Ethan's hidden dealings was creating cracks beneath the gilded surface of his empire. I was closing in on the truth, and Julia unwittingly became my ally, a bridge between my intentions and Ethan's downfall. My nights were spent contemplating the threads I had gathered, piecing together a plan. Each detail I noted would lead me closer to unraveling the life Ethan thought he controlled. I had grown from merely Clara the maid into a player in a much larger game. Finally, I sat facing the mansion's grand view, contemplating the impending clash. I understood that it was not just about revenge for my father, but also about reclaiming the power this world sought to stifle in me. My past filled me with fury, but my resolve ignited a fire of determination, a need to reclaim my narrative and, in turn, challenge everything Ethan stood for. With every whispered secret from Julia and every hesitant gesture from Ethan, I inched closer to a confrontation that would alter the course of our lives. Clara Voss was ready to emerge from the shadows, leaving behind the servant's disguise to confront the man who had unknowingly set this reckoning in motion. I could almost taste victory, the thrill coursing through my veins, knowing the time to enact my plan was drawing near. The pieces were all in place, and I was ready to play my hand. The night air felt electric as I lay awake in my cramped quarters, the sounds of laughter and jazz filtering through the walls of the Blackwood mansion. Another lavish party was in full swing, and each note of music struck like a drumbeat in my chest. I had planned for this moment, and the time to act was upon me. This night would change everything. As I slipped into my crisp black uniform, I felt a transformation taking place, a shift from mere maid to a vengeful spirit cloaked in discretion. I caught a glimpse of my reflection, a servant's guise hiding a roiling storm within. With a deep breath, I stepped into the dazzling ballroom, where elegance encased deceit like an Irish soft-shell crab. The venue sparkled under ornate chandeliers, guests swirling in a whirlwind of silk and cashmere. My eyes immediately found Ethan, standing tall in the midst of the crowd, his demeanor cool and collected. Yet, I sensed a tension beneath his charming surface, a predator unaware of the hunt closing in on him. Julia appeared among the throng, a breathtaking vision in her gown, but I could see the strain behind her smile. I needed to tread carefully. My growing connection with her could either be my greatest asset or lead to disaster. Throughout the evening, I navigated the sea of guests, engaging in small talk while keeping a watchful eye on Ethan. I eavesdropped on snippets of conversations, catching phrases like merger and market evaluation, words that hinted at the shaky foundation of Ethan's empire. Each utterance was a thread in a tapestry of betrayal, and I was determined to weave them together. While attending to my chores, I positioned myself near the bar, where whispers danced around wine glasses. Guests spoke conspiratorially, unaware of the ears listening nearby. "Did you hear about the proposal?" one questioned. "They say Ethan's in over his head," another replied, laughter masking their concern. The words ignited a thrill within me. The cracks in Ethan's facade were becoming evident. "Clara." Julia's voice broke through the noise, and I turned to find her looking worried. "They're discussing a merger with—" "Not now," I interrupted, glancing around to ensure Ethan wasn't nearby. "We need to gather more intel before you say anything. What if he's hiding something that could hurt us?" She sounded desperate, glancing around as if Ethan's shadow loomed behind her. "Then we'll use it. But first, we need proof," I urged, urgency thickening my voice. I could see her resolve falter, yet she nodded, her trust in me glowing even brighter against the backdrop of uncertainty. Moments later, I noticed Ethan striding through the crowd, his control over the room palpable. He spotted us and made his way over, a charming smile plastered across his face. "What are my lovely ladies discussing?" he asked, his tone playful yet piercing. "Just the party, Ethan," I replied, my voice steady. "What a night you've orchestrated." "Of course, I did. What can I say? I have a flair for the dramatic," he smirked, dismissing us with a wave as he turned away. The arrogance wrapped around him like a warm cloak only fueled my determination. As the night dragged on, the once light-hearted atmosphere thickened with a sense of foreboding. I overheard fragments of conversation about past dealings and buried threats. Each word compounded my resolve and drew me closer to the confrontation I was so desperate to create. With the clock winding toward midnight, a plan began to crystallize in my mind. I needed to confront Ethan in a way he wouldn't see coming. The dinner was a distraction, a prelude to the truth that needed to unfurl before him. In the quiet, lonely hours of the party, I approached the head maid, Martha, feigning casual interest. "I overheard something about documents piling up in Ethan's office," I said lightly, gauging her response. "Do you think I could get them organized?" Martha raised an eyebrow, her skepticism palpable. "You think he'd leave important papers lying around?" "People tend to underestimate what happens in the chaos of parties," I replied, my voice smooth and deceptive. "Just a thought." After a moment, she nodded slowly, intrigued. "I'll keep an eye on it. But be careful, you tread on dangerous waters." "Good. If I could get into that office, I could unearth the truth wrapped in layers of lies." Knowing where Ethan's vulnerabilities lay only made me more determined to expose them. When I finally slipped away from the ballroom, I could feel the tension mounting within me. The time had arrived. I crept through the empty hallways, my heart pounding in rhythm with the churning anticipation. Ethan's office door loomed in front of me, a portal to knowledge and power. With a swift motion, I pushed open the door, silently entering the sanctum filled with the scent of leather and secrets. Papers sprawled across the desk like a battlefield, financial summaries, contracts, and correspondence that all blurred into one another. My eyes widened with possibilities. As I rifled through the important papers, I caught sight of a folder marked with my father's company name. The realization struck me like a lightning bolt. The merger discussions hadn't been mere whispers. They represented a strategic dissolution, an opportunity for him to obliterate my father's legacy, solidifying his own power. With trembling hands, I slid the folder into the confines of my uniform, aware that I was likely leaving little behind. Just as I was about to escape the room, a sound halted me in my tracks, footsteps echoing in the hallway, unmistakably approaching. Panic surged through my veins. I had to get out before Ethan discovered my intrusion. I dashed toward the window, barely managing to crack it open before a calm yet frustrated voice called out behind me. "Clara? Are you in there?" It was Ethan. I scrambled out just in time, landing in the garden with a muted thud. I felt a rush of adrenaline as I dashed away, the thrill of danger adding to my resolve. As I reached the cover of the moonlit trees, I stopped to catch my breath. The storm was brewing, and I now possessed critical pieces of evidence that could turn the tide against Ethan. Everything was finally falling into place. My past and Ethan's arrogance were intertwined, leading to a moment of reckoning that I had tirelessly orchestrated. No longer just Clara the maid, I emerged as a force of vengeance and resolution, a daughter reclaiming her story. With each plan and secret unturned, I felt the power of the approaching confrontation pulse through me. Justice was within reach, and I stood tall on the precipice. It was time to unveil the man behind the curtain and reclaim my narrative. The cool night air invigorated me as I slipped through the shadows of the garden, concealing the folder against my chest. My heart thrummed with anticipation, each beat echoing the pulse of my plan as it took shape. I had dared to step into this world of lies, and I was prepared to lay bare the truth that had haunted my existence for far too long. I found refuge in a cluster of trees, the branches whispering secrets as the wind rustled through them. The weight of the evidence felt heavy but empowering. I could dismantle Ethan's empire with its contents. But I needed to strategize. This was no longer just about revenge, it was about justice for my father, a reckoning that the Blackwoods had long avoided. First, I needed to bring Julia into the fold. She was crucial to my plan, a perfect accomplice who could add a deeply personal layer to our confrontation. I still remembered her expression, a blend of sadness and frustration, tethered to the gilded cage Ethan had built around her. She needed a push to embrace her own strength, and I was determined to be that catalyst. The next morning, I waited in the kitchen, my heart racing as the sun bathed the brick mansion in golden light. My mind whirred with thoughts of how to approach Julia. I recalled the intimate moments we shared, our conversations laced with confessions and hopes. The vulnerability we exchanged couldn't go to waste. As the staff bustled around preparing breakfast, I spotted Julia entering, her movements graceful yet subdued. The moment our eyes met, I felt an electric connection, the kind that could birth revolution. "Clara, good morning," she greeted, a faint smile crossing her face, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Julia," I replied softly, pulling her aside into a small pantry away from prying eyes and ears. "I need to talk to you. It's about Ethan and the merger." Her brows furrowed, the concern etched into her features. "What do you mean?" "I found documents in Ethan's office. They outline a plan to dissolve your father's company. He's playing a dangerous game, and we have the chance to stop him." Shock washed over Julia's face, her breath hitching. "Do you have proof?" I held out the folder, watching as her expression transformed from disbelief to realization. "This is everything," I continued, my voice steady. "If we act now, we can confront him together, and you can reclaim your power." "It's too risky," she murmured, uncertainty clouding her eyes. What if he retaliates? No, I took a step closer, stealing my gaze. Ethan may think he's invincible, but he's not. He's vulnerable, and if we expose him, he'll lose everything. This is your chance, Julia. We can dismantle his facade. Her shoulders relaxed slightly, contemplating the weight of my words. But how do we do it? We need a plan. I'll gather more evidence, interactions between his business associates and trust issues he has with powerful investors. I could see the flickers of hope ignite behind her hesitation as she absorbed my words. Then, when the time is right, we strike. She nodded slowly, determination washing over her face. All right, if we're going to do this, we do it together. I want to be part of it. Our pact set a fire in my gut, stirring something within me I had nearly forgotten. Action emboldened my spirit. It was time to turn the tide against Ethan Blackwood. The days following our discussion became a blur, filled with strategic plotting and quiet observation. I meticulously documented every movement of Ethan, memorized his habits, and identified those who could potentially become our allies. Julia found her own momentum, rekindling relationships with family members, sowing seeds of suspicion around Ethan's dealings, while maintaining a delicate dance of loyalty in public. My evenings revolved around the secrets hidden within the mansion's opulent walls. Each murmur of conversation I collected drew me closer to the core of Ethan's duplicity. I discovered partnerships and liabilities that could shake his confidence, and the thrill of the hunt guided me. On one fateful evening, I overheard a conversation that sent a jolt of adrenaline coursing through me. The investor Ethan had been courting was finally showing cracks in his unwavering faith. I quickly excused myself from the kitchen, blending into the shadows as I crept closer, straining to hear their discussions. I don't like the rumors surrounding our investment. Legal issues, risks, it's all too murky, the investor said, his voice laced with doubt. I assure you, everything has been handled, Ethan replied, trying to maintain his composure. Trust me, when this merger goes through, you won't regret it. Trust is a fragile thing in this business, the investor countered. And it can break just as easily. The tension hung in the air like a dense fog as I catalogued every word. I could use this hesitation, accentuating the seeds of doubt I had carefully sown with Julia. If I could get to this investor, maybe I could pull some strings that would unravel Ethan's plans. After that exchange, I felt a sense of urgency converge. It was time to leverage this information and align our plan to bring Ethan down. With a rising tide of determination, I met Julia in the sanctuary of the gardens, just beyond the reach of prying eyes. Julia, I have news, I said breathlessly as I caught her off guard, excitement bubbling within me. The investor is starting to suspect him. We can meet him, share what we know. If we can convince him, it will upset everything Ethan thinks he controls. What do you want me to do? Julia asked, crossing her arms defensively. Use the connections you have, invite him to the house. We'll corner him, reveal the reality of the situation. Her gaze sharpened as the pieces fell into place. All right, I can arrange it. But we need to tread carefully. I nodded, feeling the excitement of possibility become tangible. As we executed our plan, the thrill of anticipation coiled in my stomach. Everything was aligning, the pieces of our precarious game primed for upheaval. The day of the meeting arrived. My pulse quickened as I prepared for the confrontation. I tucked the folder into my uniform once more and glanced at Julia, who stood beside me, a quiet wariness mingled with resolve. Remember, we're in this together, I reminded her, and her nod reassured me that she was ready. As we waited for the investor, I felt a mixture of fear and exhilaration course through me. The moment felt monumental, the culmination of our plans drawing near. Ethan was only steps away from discovering how deeply he had underestimated us. When the investor finally arrived, I felt the air shift. His eyes scanned the lavish surroundings, unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. Julia welcomed him with practiced grace, guiding him into the study where we had arranged to meet. As promised, We have some crucial information, I started, my voice steady, revealing the folder we had obtained. Ethan would soon learn that his game had come at a price. I cast one last glance toward Julia, whose eyes sparkled with grit and excitement. Together, we would ensure that the reckoning he had long evaded was finally in motion. The atmosphere in the study felt charged as we waited for Ethan's arrival, shadows dancing around us in the flickering candlelight. The investor was seated across from us, his expression revealing a blend of curiosity and skepticism. He was a man of power, used to getting his way, and I knew we had to make every word count. "What's this all about?" he asked, eyes narrowing as he took in the tension in the air. "Information that could impact your entire investment," I replied, recalling the gravity of what was at stake. "Ethan Blackwood's plans are far more precarious than you know." Julia stood beside me, her presence steadying my nerves. "If you allow us, we can present evidence of his deceit," she urged, grounding herself in the moment. With a swift motion, I opened the folder and laid out the documents before him. "These papers outline a strategy that not only undermines your interests but also reveals how Ethan intends to dismantle your partner's legacy." The investor leaned in, scrutinizing the contents. "What do you mean?" "This looks like standard merger documentation." "Standard until you consider the context." I glanced at Julia, who interjected with a fierce confidence. "He's manipulating the merger to erase my father's company from existence," she declared, her voice strong. "You can't trust him." He shifted in his seat, a flicker of doubt crossing his features. "And why should I trust you too?" "Because," I said, my heart pounding, "I am more than a maid in his employ. I am here to reclaim my family's legacy, and for that, I need your help." Julia stepped forward. "This is about all of us. If we don't act, we'll lose everything we hold dear." The investor's skepticism wavered at our united front. "You realize this could ruin me too if things go wrong, right?" "Yes," I replied, my conviction unwavering. "But if you choose to ignore this, you risk losing everything." As silence enveloped the room, I watched him weigh his options. Finally, he sighed, leaning back as the tension faded slightly. "All right. What's the plan?" I laid out our next steps, emphasizing the importance of a strategic approach. "We need to set up a meeting with Ethan, somewhere neutral, to lure him into a false sense of security." "Done," the investor said, already reaching for his phone. "I'll schedule a dinner. It'll keep Ethan distracted while we prepare." The excitement was palpable as we finalized the details. "This is our opportunity," I said, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "We can turn the tide." In the days leading up to the meeting, Julia maintained her role as the devoted wife, keeping Ethan blissfully unaware of the storm gathering around him. I carried on with my daily tasks, but my mind remained laser-focused on the plan. When the night of the meeting arrived, I could hardly contain my anxiety. I dressed sharply, feeling a sense of purpose that had long eluded me. We would confront Ethan, and this time, it wouldn't be from a position of weakness. As we entered the restaurant, tension draped over us like a thick fog. Just as we settled at our table, Ethan strolled in, radiating confidence. He greeted Julia with familiar charm but cast a wary glance in my direction. "What brings us together tonight?" he asked, settling in with a composed demeanor that masked the chaos beneath. Julia smiled, her eyes shining with determination. "We thought it would be beneficial to discuss our business plans with the investor." The investor managed a calculated smile. "Indeed. Ethan, I have to say, I've heard some concerning things regarding your practices." Ethan's expression hardened. "Concerning? What do you mean?" "Let's not pretend," the investor pressed. "There are rumors of unethical dealings." The tension escalated, my pulse quickening as Ethan's composure slipped. "You think you can threaten me?" "Not a threat," Julia interrupted, her voice steady. "But a warning. We're suggesting you need to reassess how you manage your affairs. This could all come crashing down." Ethan's facade cracked, anger simmering just beneath the surface. So, you both conspire against me? We're trying to save you from yourself, the investor said evenly, leaning closer. At that moment, I felt the power shift in the room. The once indomitable Ethan now sat exposed, his arrogance facing the reality of his own vulnerability. Why should I listen to you? He spat, trying to regain control. You're both just pawns in my game. Not anymore, I retorted, feeling the weight of our resolve behind my words. Ethan, you will face the consequences of your actions, and we won't let you destroy our lives any longer. The air between us was charged with pent-up energy, and I could see the tides turning. Ethan's empire was crumbling, and together with Julia and our investor ally, we had executed a masterstroke, a reckoning for a man who believed himself untouchable. As the words hung heavily in the air, I realized that we were on the precipice of change, ready to reclaim what had been taken from us. Justice was finally within reach, and Ethan would learn the true cost of underestimating those he dismissed as mere shadows in his world. Tension filled the room, tightening around us like a vice. I felt the pulse of nervous energy race through my veins, the stakes weighing heavily on my shoulders. Each moment felt crucial. I glanced at Julia, her determined eyes encouraging me to press on. Let's be clear, Ethan said, his voice thick with disdain. You think this meeting will scare me? You're misjudging your position. I know exactly who I'm dealing with, I shot back, my resolve steady. A man clinging to control over a crumbling empire. The truth is, your reign of manipulation is ending. The investor leaned forward, his tone now more authoritative. You need to acknowledge that your practices are undermining everything you've built. The consequences are not just financial, they'll be personal. Ethan's expression hardened further, transforming from rage to a suppressed panic. What do you mean by that? It's simple, Julia interjected, her voice composed. If you don't address these rumors of unethical dealings, the repercussions could be catastrophic. Rumors? Ethan laughed, but the sound was strained. I'm not intimidated by whispers in the dark. I sensed the shift in the air, the veneer of his confidence was fracturing. The moment you underestimated us is the moment you lost your advantage. You can't bully your way to safety this time. Claiming control was no longer possible for him. His arrogance was giving way to desperation. What do you want from me? He demanded, fury boiling beneath the surface. Accountability, I replied firmly. It's time you made amends for the lives you've hurt, including ours. Julia leaned closer, her gaze unyielding. You have a choice, Ethan. Change your ways or face the consequences. The fury in Ethan's eyes flickered, revealing a glimmer of fear. You're both just pawns, you think this meeting can bring me down? Not anymore, I shot back, adrenaline making my heart race. We've rallied against your threats, and if you don't end this, we will expose the truth. The room pulsed with a heavy silence as he processed our words. The tension swelled with each fleeting moment. As Ethan paced, grasping for control that was slipping from his fingers, the power dynamic shifted irrevocably. What makes you think you can break me? He finally uttered, his bravado faltering. We're not trying to break you, Julia said, her voice steady. We're giving you the opportunity to redeem yourself. This is your moment to reclaim your integrity. Ethan's defiance wavered as he appeared vulnerable, but the anger still simmered beneath. You think this will end well for you? You will regret this. No, you will regret underestimating us, I insisted, feeling the surge of authority fill the air. We stand united, ready to reveal how deep your deceit runs. A battle you won't win, he retorted, but the fire in his tone lacked conviction. It was clear that we had begun to unravel his bravado. By exposing you, we protect not only ourselves but everyone you've manipulated, Julia added, her eyes fierce with determination. The truth will come out, and it will claim your empire. Ethan took a step back, finally grasping the reality of his position. I can't let you do this. You already have, I countered, stepping closer. Your actions have set this in motion. Now, you can either step back to the shadows or face the consequences of your greed. As I spoke, a silence enveloped us, thick with uncertainty and resolve. I could see the internal conflict swirling in Ethan's eyes, a battle between arrogance and the chilling realization that he was losing control. The tension broke as he took a deep breath, mulling over our ultimatum. "I'll consider what you've said." "Consideration isn't enough," I warned, my voice low but firm. "You must act. Failure to do so will only lead to your downfall." As he weighed our words, I felt the tide of change wash over us. It was more than just a confrontation, it was the dawn of justice. We stood united, armed with truth, ready to change the landscape Ethan had threatened to destroy. Together, we had drawn a line in the sand, forging a path leading away from his shadow. The power dynamics had shifted, and a new era was within our grasp, a future where we could reclaim our dignity and restore balance. The weight of our determination surged in me, merging with a sense of purpose I'd never fully grasped until now. We were no longer pawns, we were players shaping the course of our own destinies. As the conversation drew to a close, I sensed that Ethan was cornered, his bluster faltering, and I welcomed the dawn of a new beginning. Justice was not merely a destination, it was the road we would carve out together, unwavering and resolute, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.